All right, guys. So we're going to be back together again on Thursday evening to continue our conversation about complexity and justice. But I want to get us kind of a running start to get back into the groove here by reviewing where we are, where we've come from, so we know where it is that we are, what's kind of the travel so far. So in the first week when we got together, our conversation was about how do we be our best selves. We as individuals have a choice about how it is we're going to show up in our lives, and the way that we choose to show up impacts the well-being we experience and that of those around us. But essentially what a healthy organism does is it creates or gathers whatever it is that it needs. And those needs can be fairly simple if we're an amoeba, but if we get to be humans, humans are far more complex. And so, well, what is it that I need? And what can I do to create what I need? Turns out this is a very complex problem. But we want to be our best selves so that we have the greatest level of satisfaction and fulfillment in our lives. We want to climb up Maslow's hierarchy up to the self-actualization stage and see what the world looks like from there. Okay, well, then we also have to build healthy relationships with others, because it turns out that who we are is largely constructed by the relationships that we have with each other. Who we are is different in different relationships. And I want all of my relationships to be as healthy as possible, which means I have to be able to think about what constitutes health in a relationship. Because it's not just that it be what I want it to be, because some of the very best relationships I've ever had were with people who challenged me to be more than who I was at the time. They saw something in me that said, hey, Mark, you can be this, you can do that. So it's not always about just fitting in and being comfortable. So it turns out that our relationships are also incredibly complex. So not just my best self, but also my best relationships with others. So in order to do this, we have to be able to kind of understand what it is that complexity is about, and to be able to distinguish what is simple from what is complicated, from what is complex, from what is chaotic. Well, in fact, reality is chaotic. The best we can do is come up with maps that make it simple or complicated or complex. But complex, boy, it's really hard to get our heads around complexity. So what we want to be able to do is to have maps that make complexity simple. I want to have a map that's comprehensive enough to be, tell me the whole territory, but comprehendible enough to make it simple so I can get my head around it. So we're looking for how it is that we can map complexity in such a way that we can actually use it to solve our problems for living. All right. So there's lots of different maps that can be available to us to be able to map complexity. So what we're going to do here is look at some of the maps that are available to us, and to lead into what we're going to do for the rest of this course, and looking at 3 maps that are of particular value to me for various reasons, which I will get to. So if we're going to map complexity, now I've got to have the cursor in the right place to make that work. Okay, so this is a map of complexity science through time. The maps that I'm going to show you here are ones that I have links to on the website, and you can pull them up and you can blow them up and you can actually get them to where you can read it. Obviously, you can't read all these things on here. But each of these circles or ovals is a field of study within science. And there's a couple of guys who every couple of years they revise this, because the complexity science is growing so fast. They keep putting new things on there. But this is a kind of their sense of how to put together the kind of the streams of thought and the relationship between them, and who are the people that have come up with these. And so you can kind of look at this as an example of a map. But this isn't a map of complexity. This is a map of the sciences that are looking at complexity. So it gives you an idea of the scale of the discourse. But this is one of the maps that kind of, in some ways, started us into integral thinking. Clare Graves is a guy who was teaching psychology back in the 60s, I think it was, and was challenged by his students to look at how do the various theories of psychology fit together. And so he came up with this theory about spiral dynamics. And there are literally books about spiral dynamics, and there's great websites about it. This particular graphic is one that holds together not only the work of Clare Graves, but others who followed after him. So it is a beginning synthesis of these stages of development, moving from way down. It goes from top to, or bottom to top as we move up, and it graphs or it sort of explicates not only our development as humans, but also the development of human culture, of human society, and how it is that we govern ourselves within society. So this is an awesome map. I mean, you could spend a lot of time with this, and it really helps you see the world in a richer way. So I encourage you to follow the links that I give you and take a look at these maps more closely. So this map of spiral dynamics is also present in this map. If you notice right below the L in Octave, that's spiral dynamics. Octave, all quadrants, all levels, all lines, all types. This is Ken Wilber's work and the Integral Institute's work of how to create a comprehensive map. And it's actually a map of maps. There's a whole bunch of stuff here. And this is one you can blow up and put on your wall. And you'll also find amazing things here. That middle section is talking about ego development stages. And that's one that's going to be of particular interest to us as well. Up there at the far right, individual, interior, exterior, and group. That's the quadrant of the all quadrants. And it divides up experience and reality into the interior and the exterior, the collective and the individual. And so it's a way of kind of mapping out all of the possibilities for being. So these are just three of many, many, many maps. I have pulled together, in my experience, some of these into what I call the 8 orders of being. Typically this map, when I printed it out, I talk about the 8 orders of self, because I'm talking about how do we think about ourselves. But it's true for any kind of complex adaptive system that exists in the world, exists in multiple layers at the same time. And that's what we're going to be talking about mostly this Thursday evening. So I'm going to have a follow-up video where I really talk about that. And then some of the implications of that we'll do a week from now, because we're only going to be scratching the surface here with 2 whole classes to talk about this. And then we're going to move on to the transformation octave, which is an application of Gurdjieff's law of 7 that looks at how it is that we move from one level of development to the next. When we kind of work our way up, we're working through a transformational process. And so being able to see what the process is, if we get stuck, we can say, oh yeah, we're not doing that one well enough. And so we can lean into the various steps. Because part of what happens here is that the map is something that we form out of our experience, but having had the experience now, when we're confused, we can go back to the map and it can tell us, well, then if this is true, then that must also be true. We're gonna see that as we look at the 8 orders here. Right? So after we do the 8 orders, we're going to spend a couple of weeks on the transformation octave, and a part of that conversation is going to be about how it is that spirituality and the transpersonal get expressed through complexity, and how can we understand spirituality and complexity. All right, that's one of my favorites. All right, and then the final 2 weeks, we're going to look at this this process we call just conflict. I used to call it creative conflict resolution, but I got a lot of people use that term, as it turns out. I'll tell you stories about that at some point. But this is a map that I teach in classes in an ongoing way and have for many, many years. Very powerful set of techniques. And what you will see is that what we're doing in each of these maps, there's a sort of resonance at various levels. So if we look, this is sort of the 8 orders of being, is kind of, this is the 30,000 foot look. Everything fits in here. As we go from one level to the next, what we're doing at sort of the 300-foot level is we're working on this transformation octave. But when we get down to the 3-foot level, when we're actually in relationships one-on-one to each other in a system that has a glitch in it, there's some kind of dysfunction, we're not functioning the way we would like to, then we apply the just conflict as a tool for making sense of this. So these are the things that we're going to be doing over the next few weeks. I'm going to be pulling up, pulling together the next video here very soon. Again, I really urge you to look closely at the maps that you'll see in the links to this. Spend a little time with them to kind of see what comes up for you. What gets stimulated by seeing these maps as you're thinking about the applications for your own life. Okay, talk to you soon.